Host Eric here, host of Talking with Famous People, and the man who plans to tell you the problem with hotels. Oh, sure, you might well point out that hotels have a lot of problems. For example, although I don't see any no smoking signs, I'm pretty sure I'm not allowed to smoke here. It's the pool area. Nobody's here though at the pool at 4 in the morning except for me. You might say, Eric, why are you at the pool at 4 in the morning? Are you planning to go swimming? No, I'm not. I'm not planning to go swimming. I'm here because of the problem with hotels. First of all, when you stay in a hotel, you have one room. And if you're Eric and you stay at a hotel, you have a habit of waking up at like 3 in the morning and then being unable to go back to sleep. And getting up, taking Adderall, and then just saying forget it to going back to sleep. And then of course, the inclination to live stream. But I'm not traveling alone. I have my beloved and beautiful wife Rachel with me. And she's sleeping soundly in the bedroom, the hotel room, you know. I tried to find a nice place inside the hotel to sit and live stream. But of course, that presents its own kind of problem because all the sitting areas in the hotel are filled with copyrighted music. So, you know, life's a bitch and then you die. So I got a few hours to kill here, at least, before Rachel gets up. More like 5 hours to kill. I'm not sure how I'm going to kill all that time, really, but I do have some amperage in me, which is nice. A reasonable amount, you know, 40 milligrams. Not a ton. Should be sufficient today to fly straight through the morning. I gotta drive back to Mariposa today, of course. I saw Delilah very briefly last night. She didn't really have time for me yesterday because she had something going on with Elliot. Elliot's power was out, so he was staying at her house. That's her boyfriend. They've been going out now for a long time, but I don't really hear about him very much. He doesn't really talk about him. She was pleased that Cardano was up, you know. My calling her when it was at 38 cents saying, buy Cardano, was wise. It's at 60 cents right now, but it hit 65 cents at one point yesterday. I'll show you around the hotel a little bit. We're staying at the Westin Pasadena because I got a really good deal on it. It's the only reason why we chose this place. This is Pasadena. I'll show you over here on the other side as well. This is the pool that I am not going swimming in. And I'm trying to find a spot where it's not so wet. There's like City Hall and stuff over there. This isn't a good spot in Pasadena. It's within easy walking distance of Old Town. If we wanted to visit Pasadena, this would be a good hotel to stay at. Of course, we don't want to visit Pasadena. I lived here for years and years. Not Pasadena per se, but in this general vicinity. Spent a lot of time in Pasadena. To be honest, it's looking a little better, you know? It's looking like they cleaned up the place a bit. I don't see nearly the amount of homeless that I did when we left LA. So maybe it's improving, who knows? I still ultimately don't have much interest in living in the city. It's a little chilly out here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to really find a place downstairs where I can stream, but I might consider streaming from the bathroom. That's a possibility. South stair exit. I could go down the stairs. That would be an interesting possibility. Here's our room over here. Number 447. Rachel's fast asleep in there. So I guess I'll go down the elevator and try to find a spot to sit where I don't have copyrighted music playing. I tried originally doing this from the car, but the car's in an underground parking lot, and of course there's no internet. The car is really an ideal place to do this because what other room do you have in a hotel besides your hotel room? You have your car. So I will go down the elevator. Hopefully we won't lose connectivity in the elevator, but if we do, I'll be down on the ground floor soon enough. For the two of you who are here. I know, it's a little early. It's a little bit early. So, you know, I've been doing a lot of reading lately. Just generally feeling, I don't know, a sense of excessive meow. I guess this is about as good a place as I'm gonna get. This is about as far away from the music as I can get. Music's over there. We got a lot of Christmas stuff going on in this hotel, as you can see. Let's see if I can find a slightly better place though. Maybe this chair here will be fine. So maybe this chair here will be fine. I can have a little table next to me this way. There we go. That's not so bad. I could even scoot this over a little bit towards me. And I could even put it on top of this. There we go. Put it right there. Perfect. Perfect enough anyway. Perfect enough for a hotel stream. You probably can't hear me though. That's the problem with that plan. Because you can't hear me because the microphone is inside the thing. There, that's better. Now you can probably hear me. It's like, how does one balance between speaking the truth and being heard, you know? It's the great conundrum of my life. I know everybody feels as though they see things most clearly, you know? But I speak things most clearly. The words I say mean things. And I'm not operating under the assumption that all my words are always correct. But I do tend to operate under the assumption that if I'm wrong, other words will emerge to establish that. You know, words that actually mean things, not stuff like, I disagree with you because I disagree with you. Or, you need to read more books. I never thought I'd actually say this, but I feel so misunderstood. I know I titled a live stream that the other day, but in general, I feel so misunderstood. I know that's kind of an INFP thing to say, more than an ENTP thing to say, but I guess I don't feel misunderstood. I feel not understood, which is different, you know? Like, if misunderstanding were the problem, there'd be a simple enough solution, right? I just need to explain myself more clearly. But if a problem is either an inability to understand or an unwillingness to understand, then there's not much I can do about that, you know? I can try to make my explanations simpler, but if they run afoul of some core identity marker of yours that you have linked to some certain wrongness, then I'm unlikely to make any progress. Very unlikely. If anything, I'm just going to make people hate me, you know. And of course, what all this is predicated on is my central assumption that the words I'm saying are true, significant, ought to be adopted as positions by others, you know. But people don't feel as though they need any assistance in adopting positions at all, you know. They don't. Everybody feels as though they're perfectly capable of adopting their own positions, sustaining them, upholding them, affirming them, negating them, whatever. Even though, you know, that kind of business requires a certain expertise that almost nobody has. But unlike, say, surgery, nobody acknowledges that it requires a certain expertise. So, needless to say, that's frustrating. I remember one of the times I worked at Rebay, I came in to kind of help slash take over the debate team, which had withered into nothing in my absence. They had a drama teacher teaching the class, and she insisted she could coach debate just fine. She did debate in her classes all the time. Of course, she had no fucking idea what it was. Her idea of debate was two people disagreeing with each other. So, it's not unique among things in the world, but it's fairly uncommon that you have something that requires so much actual skill, at which nobody has any actual skill, and that everybody thinks they're perfectly qualified to do, you know? Namely, parsing, advocating, negating. It's not, as I've learned over the years, it's extremely difficult for most people. Like, even other debate coaches, right? I'm better than they are. It took me years to accept that, because why would that be the case, you know? Why would it be that I'm just naturally more talented at it or something? Or just, I don't know. Because if you're talking about a community of debate coaches, you're talking about one of the smartest communities in the world. If not the smartest, you know? It's the highest intellectual pursuit. You're pursuing truth through discourse. But it's understandable that people are not going to believe me to be an outlier in a field that they don't believe is a field, you know? Since people operate under the assumption that their use of language is adequate to do whatever things they want to do with it, then they're going to find evidence to the contrary threatening to their identity, their ontology, whatever, and be quite resistant to it. And yet, the things I have to say are things people need to hear and understand if we want civilization to advance, you know? We are handicapped dramatically by our inability to understand one another because people don't get cognitive functions. And even those who embrace the idea of cognitive functions don't have it right and don't want to accept that there is a single right way to interpret things, you know? So the world pushes back. That's the bottom line. Anytime you push, the world pushes back, right? And it's unclear what the solution is. I feel as though I have some responsibility of some sort. Like, to help the world understand things better. But I don't tend to present it from a helpful angle. I'm not approaching it like, oh, hey, here's something I've framed to be helpful from your perspective. Instead, I'm like, hey, you're wrong. I'm Eric. I'm right and you're wrong, and get over it. Well, people don't like that, obviously. I wouldn't like it either. Unless the person was genuinely right, in which case I'd be like, well, thanks for correcting me. But I get it, that it's easy to be in that position when you're right about almost everything, you know? At least everything you talk about. It's like I'm intentionally configured to do that. To select between things where I have actual understanding and knowledge versus things where I'm just talking out my ass, right? I talk out of my ass sometimes too, but I know when I'm talking out of my ass. You know? That's the difference. But the thing is, it's unfair of me and just insane, like knowing better and expecting different, to expect something else than what I persistently attain with my approach. Other people, if I want to be an outlier, which I'm not sure if I want to be one or not, but if I'm going to be an outlier, it's necessarily the case that there are plenty of other people who are going to have a challenge accepting that, because it positions them in some way as inferior. Of course, I don't think that this is a good thing to be. You know, it's like being me is not a good thing. I'm not very useful. I'm fairly divisive. I, seem to have a poor grasp of 6'5". How tall are you? 6'3". Congratulations. I am 6'5". 6'4" and a half. Good morning. Hi. Can I get a pack of Marlboro Red shorts, please? No, I don't need matches.
1226.
Thank you. You too. Okay. So now I am out of the Arco, where I purchased another pack of cigarettes, because I only have a few left from my other pack. It is raining a little bit right now, which is kind of cool, Here in California, we always love rain, even when it's a little inconvenient, And it's just raining a little bit. Getting a few drops on me here and there, but ain't no big thing. I'm accustomed to colder weather than this these days, Living in Mariposa right now, it would be 40 degrees, and I'd be freezing my ass off. But here in Pasadena, it's probably like 60 or something. I don't know. 60, 65. And once you become accustomed to colder cold, this doesn't really feel very cold, even though I'm getting wet. And so are you. But that's okay. Now we're underneath the walkway thing, so I'm no longer getting wet. Now I am getting slightly cold, but not too cold to smoke a cigarette before we go inside. I wonder what time the restaurant opens. Go get some breakfast. We could have breakfast together. Breaking fast with famous people. That was cool that guy at the gas station asked me how tall I was. And then I asked him how tall he was. That's a pleasant conversation, right? You know, it's a real easy conversation. How tall are you? 6'5". How tall are you? 6'3". Wonderful. It's not that often people ask me how tall I am. I'm not that tall, right? Like if I were 7 foot tall, people would ask me all the time, I'm sure. But 6'5" is within the range of normal. And I'm really like 6'4.5" at this point. You shrink a little bit as you get older. Yeah, Rachel's only 5'2". I didn't learn how tall she was until like less than a year ago. When she asked me one day, "Do you know how tall I am?" I said, "No." Why would I know that? She said she loves that about me. What, that I don't care how tall she is? She's the same as everybody else, shorter than me. I hate it when I come across somebody who is as tall as I am or taller than me. It's like, what? I can't see over you. What is wrong with you? Get shorter. It's good that we're getting some rain. Real good. I hope it's raining up in Mariposa too. It would be cool to get a little snow, but supposedly we don't normally get that much snow where we live. Last year was a freakish anomaly where we got like 6 feet of snow, but that's very unusual, supposedly. According to the neighbors, on an average year we might get a couple inches of snow in Mariposa. But nothing like last year. So if we just get a bunch of rain, though, that's fine. I'm happy with that. I just like precipitation. If it gets wet enough up there, we'll get our little stream by our house. Seasonal stream we have at the bottom of our gully there. I've gone down there to pan for gold before, but to no avail. I didn't find any gold. But I've not given up hope on finding gold yet. Because I do live in gold country, as they call it. The town we pass on the way out, going through Madera County, called Coarse Gold, where once upon a time they found large nuggets of coarse gold. Obviously, all the so-called placer gold is long gone, but I would point out that like big storms, like last year's big storm, has a decent chance of dislodging some gold. So it's conceivable that I could find some gold near my house, It would be nice. I'd like to find like 40 pounds of gold. Is that asking too much? 40 pounds of gold seems like a reasonable amount. £40 of gold. That's all I want. Is that asking too much? It's actually a lot of money, 40 pounds of gold. Because there are 16 ounces in a pound, and gold's like at $2,000 an ounce. So it's $32,000 a pound. So 40 pounds be 320,000. A good amount of gold. Now, how am I going to go about acquiring 40 pounds of gold from the ground? Well, one way could be that somebody buried a treasure chest on my property. It's filled with gold. If that happened, then it would be easy to find it. I just have to dig and find it. But realistically, it's unlikely someone buried a treasure chest full of gold on my property. So maybe I'll just have to invest in crypto or something. I don't know. You know, you can't always get what you want, especially if what you want is 40 pounds of gold. Why not go big? Why not just say 400 pounds of gold? So I'm now in the bathroom, which is, of course, the only other possible place I can live stream from besides the lobby outside. I can't live stream from the car because it's in the parking lot, which is underground. Now, sure, I could drive the parking lot away from underground. What does this say? Let me get my glasses out. Good morning, show media. New timeout length. Yes, I heard about that. I don't tend to time people out that much. Usually I just ban them. Ban them or do nothing. Unless they're an old timer, like Boba Fett can get himself timed out. Probably won't ban him, but sometimes he pisses me off, you know. There. Went more poo. That's good. It's always good to get more poo. I went poo already earlier this morning, but you can never go too much poo. I had some very pleasant sexual intercourse last night. Didn't last very long because I've been waiting for my shaving injury to heal. So there was some built up urgency. But I was like, hi, I'm done. Got over it. That's my most romantic self there. Just as well it didn't last very long. This bed didn't seem very sturdy. Made a lot of noise. Well, I guess next we'll go down to the restaurant. Well, it's almost 5. It might open at 5 a.m. the overall point of this little foray into live streaming is to establish the point that the problem with hotels is that when you get up earlier than your wife, you don't have any place to live stream. The bathroom's not terrible, but, you know, she could probably still hear me. Weak ass LA toilet. No, that's an urban legend, show me dear. Ruben does not cock-a-doodle-doo in the morning and wake everybody up. That would be me. That's what I call my live stream, cock-a-doodle-doo. Okay, let's go back downstairs to our the little spot that I set up. You know, the spot next to the Christmas decorations where I can balance my phone. Use its folding capacity to good effect. I'm glad I got a fold phone. This is a purchase I do not regret. I've never regretted getting this folding phone. I really like, most of all, the way that it fits nicely in your pocket because it's a folded up square. But it is nice to be able to use the folding capacity on occasion, as per, yeah, you know. At least then, when you lean it against something, you aren't covering up the microphones. So, back down to the plaza level, or the lobby, as it's sometimes known. They have this spot to sit called the living room, which has comfortable chairs. They're also playing copyrighted music there, so. But I can sit here and live stream. This doesn't seem to be close enough to the music to cause me any problems. So, how's the battery life? Well, I had about 50% when I started. I got a charger in the car. I don't have a charger to plug into the wall, though. Pretty Christmassy here. Let's take a gander. Pretty Christmassy indeed. And, you know, this is one of the things I was looking forward to about staying in a hotel. I wanted to stay in a nice enough hotel that they had big Christmas decorations like this. And we did stay in one, but I got this room so cheap. I looked online yesterday. I got it for $128, which is $150 after fees and taxes and stuff. That's pretty darn cheap for a nice room at the Westin. I mean, it's not a bad room anyway. Westin's a little bit of an older hotel, but still very nice. It's one of those last minute deal things, you know, because I booked it the same day. In the morning, I was able to get a good price on this. Coneman 3. You can type now. Sometimes you can't. Don't know why. Maybe it's because you only sometimes have fingers. Winston's mom. Delilah's fine. She's with her boyfriend. And we didn't see her. Rachel didn't see her at all. I saw her. Rachel fell asleep after we got to the hotel room yesterday, so I just went over to visit Delilah and gave her the mail. Got some amphetamines. She was happy about Cardano. She mentioned the fact that it was way up since I told her to buy it. Live chat is sometimes not available. I'm not sure why that would be. No, it's her boyfriend. They've been going out for a while, but I just don't really ever hear her talk about him, you know? Which is it's surprising to me because, I talk about Rachel all the time. Well, of course, Rachel and I live together. Delilah and her boyfriend live on opposite sides of LA. He lives over like in Santa Monica area. And she lives in Dwardy. It's a big gap. It's a big distance between them. But his power, he had some sort of planned power outage at his house, so he was at Delilah's. I didn't even see him. She met me down in the parking lot. Which is fine. It's like, I don't need a ton of contact with Delilah. I just need to know that she's okay, she's happy, nothing significant's going on. It's good enough for me. I got my own life, she's got her own life. Sometimes I think I'm not getting enough out of my relationship with my daughter, or as much as I should be getting, because I love her so much. Oh yeah, you mean feeling like I have a purpose to help, but not sure how to do it? I do feel that way. I feel I have an obligation somehow to convey a variety of messages, In some ways, the least controversial outside of the typology community is typology. That's something that that I could potentially convey to people that would be extremely meaningful in terms of helping us understand one another, There are reasons why people have trouble listening to me, for example, or benefiting from what I say. And so, the problem then is my means of providing them information is not suitable to their attentional stack, It's the city I live in, the city of angels. Lonely as I am, together we cry. Well, good for you, Coneman 3. I'm glad you're writing some deep stuff. I find that clarity, precision are the hardest things to attain, for most people. Most people don't use language for the purpose of clearly communicating precise things. They use it for the purpose of conveying things about themselves mostly, and or if they are conveying things about the world, doing so in ways that link to their own interests in some fashion. People like INFJs, ENTPs, who are extremely distant from their subjectivities, they're not, if you look at it from a sort of overarching teleological sense, we're a terrible design, you know? We don't know how to, we're not good at prioritizing ourselves. We don't know what we want. We don't know what makes us happy necessarily. Maybe ENFJs too, although I think with SE third, they're in much better shape. At least they have a sensory thing as an absolute value, you know? But I'm configured to communicate precisely, and almost nobody's configured to understand that. It's like the only other people who can truly operate like that are fellow NTPs, STPs maybe, at least on the negationary side. But there's kind of a uniquely universalist quality to the communication of probably most ENTPs, certainly me, which it's like if you're dealing with somebody who's constantly determining the value of things against their own interest, which is the natural smart way to do things if you want to be a human being, right? Rather than if you want to be correct. If you want to be a happy, healthy human being, you need to have a good relationship with your subjectivities. You need to know what you like, what you don't like, what makes you happy, etc., right? But when dealing with people who prioritize their subjectivities, no matter how reasonable a thing to do that might be, what I've determined is that they find it impossible to believe that I'm not using my subjectivities. They find it impossible to believe that I'm actually doing a disinterested calculus on anything, because they never do a disinterested calculus on anything. To the extent that they can, it's probably a TE kind of disinterested calculus where they're saying, okay, from an objective perspective, is this plan going to attain this goal? Well, that's all well and good, but it's still fundamentally under the frame of reference of self-interest. So, like when I tell people, like, look, I'm right because I'm doing the job of being right correctly, not only do they take offense at it, but they're likely to not even believe that it's possible to do that. Let alone impossible for me not to do that. You have to really understand cognitive functions well to get that, you know? But yeah, it's hard being an intuitive Dom. Any Dom, NI Dom, either way, it's hard being a dominant intuitive. We're not well configured for life. Now, I'm lucky, right? Like, I have all the advantages of an aristocrat who doesn't really have to do things except be an intellectual, right? So I've got nothing to complain about except my general sense of failure to meet my own purpose, which is is at the very top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So, I'm the last person who should be whining or complaining about anything. I don't mean to be exactly complaining or whining about this. Rather, I mean to be talking it out to help me better get a grasp on whatever, I don't know. It's like talking it out's never helped before. Why would it help this time? Talking it out is all I ever seem to do. Is that my destiny? That's my destiny for the rest of my life, is to talk about my ontological struggles on live streams to 6 participants, 5 maybe. Is that my destiny in life? Shouldn't I feel responsible to accomplish something more? Yeah, I probably should. And then I got this additional problem of I'm constantly have this low level of stress or anxiety or sense of responsibility that I need to start paying attention to the estate and figure things out financially, like, well, what are we doing or whatever, you know? Like the stock market's at an all-time high. So, but I don't even know what our portfolio is worth, you know? I don't, because I've steadfastly avoided dealing with anything for more than a year now. In terms of that, anyway. But Delilah and I are going to have a meeting in January, and we're going to also have this meeting with a tax guy, at least part of the meeting with a tax guy, so that we can determine some questions about how we can move money around without incurring taxes. Which money we can't move around without incurring taxes, etc. You know, I don't mind capital gains taxes, but I don't want to be paying personal income tax on money that I get from the trust or something like that. I'm not sure how all that shit works. I don't really want to research it, so we're going to have to hire a tax guy. And stuff like that is not in my wheelhouse, you know. It stresses me out, and I don't feel really qualified to deal with it. You know, it's like, can I really do a better job of investing than my dad did with Ronnie? Probably not. But at the same time, we don't have the monthly income that my dad had, so we're having to live off this shit too, you know? Well, being able to see outside your own type does have benefits to you. Like, if I were looking to exploit advantages, if I were looking to socially engineer people or something, then knowing about type would be very useful for me, right? But I'm just not that kind of person. Like, not saying because I'm such a good person or anything, but rather, I'm just not configured that way. I'm not configured to prioritize my subjectivities very much. So for me, I find understanding type mostly requires me, in my best manifestation, to be like Jesus, you know. They know not what they do. But in my worst incarnation, it just makes me angry at other people's ignorance. And not at them, the people themselves, but at the state of things, you know, that I can't communicate to them at all why this situation is as it is, because it would require me to explain to them themselves. And one thing that people do not want to hear, no matter what, is that I understand you better than you understand yourself. The problem is, with plenty of people, that is absolutely the case. For example, Club ESFP, Club ENTP. He believes himself to be an ENTP. He believes himself to be very logical. In that regard, I understand him better than he understands himself. He's deluding himself to believe he's an ENTP. He has no TI whatsoever. Doesn't even understand what it is. It's such a blind spot for him that he'll never understand himself as well as I understand him until he starts listening to me, you know? Well, yeah, almost nobody has any interest in MBTI, and for good reason. Because the typology landscape is full of garbage. There's no reason to believe there's anything valuable in the typology landscape because everybody but me is doing it wrong. I mean, I don't think there's a matter of width and depth in ideation, Cone Man, to be honest. I suspect that it'd be better said extroverted intuition deconstructs, introverted intuition distills, you know? It's not a matter of depth or width, really. But the thing is, for an NI person who's not incorporating enough TI, they're going to see big picture truths in all manner of thing, regardless of whether that manner of thing is appropriately parsed with big picture truth. So certain things are understood well with big picture truth. For example, if you're going to understand whether a song's good, a movie's good, a book's good, or whatever, if it's successful as a piece of art, you have to use NI. It's the only way to know things that are determined holistically like that. So the thing is, my NI in that regard is very strong. I know what's good and I know what's not, and I know why. But it's still not parsable, right? And when Rachel knows something with her intuition and I'm unsure, I go with her intuition every time because she's an NI Dom, you know? She's got great intuition when it kicks in. But the thing about introverted intuition is it's not the sort of function, even though you if you're an NI Dom, it's conscious, it's still not exactly willful, you know? It's a receiving function. It knows based on what it receives data-wise. Whereas extroverted intuition creates, it ideates, it generates myriad possibilities. Sometimes, often, about pointless nonsense, right? Like we were driving down from Mariposa yesterday, and Rachel, I was obviously thinking about something, I guess you could read it on my expression. Said, "What are you thinking about?" And I said, "Farming." That's what I was thinking about. We had driven by a plot of land that was for sale, and it was like a horrible spot, but it was like right by the highway. It had 200 acres and a 4-bedroom house on it, but the house was not buried deep in the acreage. It was right next to the highway. It would have been a horrible property, in my opinion. But anyway, it made me start thinking about something that was never even a remote possibility of coming true, namely, what if I bought a farm? How would I go about farming it? I would have to hire somebody who knew what they were doing to tell me what to do. I just started thinking about the whole thing. Parsing is if you read, say, a legal document and you're trying to read it for what exactly is indicated in it, because there's a lot of complicated language. In other words, parsing is determining the actual meaning of the words, what they say, and ignoring your own position on it, your own perspective, but evaluating the words that are said on their merits. The thing is, you can parse like a metered verse poem. To parse a metered verse poem means to go through it and do the accent and unaccented marks over each syllable. That's what parsing it means. So basically, to parse is to go through and take apart something and figure it out, you know? Farting is easier than farming, but less productive, unless you're trying to produce methane. But even then, your farm could probably produce more methane than your butt. So, I've got a long day ahead of me. I've got to wait for Rachel to get up. She will get up probably about 9 a.m. It is now, it's got to be after 5 now. Yeah, it's 5:05. I think I'll go walk down and see what time the restaurant opens. I could go for a cup of coffee, glass of juice, maybe some toast. Not a big meal, because I did take Adderall this morning, so I'm not like super hungry. But I'm thirsty, kind of. If I go to the car to get a drink, which I have in the car, am I sure I'm not the dad of C.S. Joseph? No. Not remotely. I disapprove wholeheartedly of his approach to typology, the whole social engineering thing, his culty ways, you know. It's not cool. And most importantly, he's wrong about everything, so, you know, it's not like there's any world in which we can stack various wrongnesses together and say, there, that's better than the correct thing. Let me see what time this place opens. Someone's back here, I'll ask them. Excuse me, what time do you open?
6:30.
Thank you. You know, as hotel art goes, this place has pretty good hotel art. Like, I kind of like this painting. I kind of like the picture in our room, too. This place kind of has a lot going on, really, for a hotel. What does that say? Data warning. What kind of data warning? Aren't I connected to the Wi-Fi? Okay, now I'm on the Wi-Fi. So I guess why am I getting a data warning anyway? Don't I have unlimited data? I gotta call Verizon and figure out what's up with that. I don't want limited data. How much does it cost for 2 phones for a month? Because my bill last month was $250. Is that about right? It seems like about right for 2 phones. Get unlimited data, obviously. I don't know why I wouldn't have unlimited data. Do you think his 4 sides of the mind is bull? Yeah, absolutely. Of course it's bullshit. It doesn't make any sense at all. Why would you have 4 sides to your mind? Your mind doesn't have sides. Metaphors like that are just useless garbage, you know? It's not like you're gonna get any kind of meaningful explication out of some bullshit metaphor, right? People pay attention in certain ways. That's true, right? That's not a metaphor. Right now, I'm paying attention by generating ideation, right? Ideating. That's accurate description. That's not bullshit. Now, granted, we have a lot of shorthands when we talk about typology. Like, we talk about functions doing certain things, when if we were going to speak super accurately about it, we'd say, this person is paying attention in this fashion. We'd always have the subject actually doing something, right? But I get it. A certain amount of shorthand is unavoidable. But I'd like to see the following habit eradicated from myself and others if possible. Effie wants meow. Effie doesn't want shit. Okay? People using extroverted feeling in a given slot are going to behave in certain ways or attend in certain ways, right? We gotta stop using that kind of horribly reductive metaphor to try to explain things because it makes everybody think that it makes everybody think wrong things. And perhaps most significantly, it's really difficult to talk meaningfully about a function without talking about what slot it's in. You know, my extroverted intuition plays out way differently than Cameron's, even though we both have extroverted intuition. My extroverted intuition plays out way differently than my dad's did, even though we both have extroverted intuition as an absolute value, you know? His extroverted intuition played out as imagining everything that could go wrong with his plans and trying to prevent it. Or thinking about places he might go on vacation, you know? It was very concrete extroverted intuition. When he was just ideating, so to speak, and talking, he wanted to just tell people about things he knew already, SI stuff, and have them listen, and didn't really want feedback or anything or engage in a conversation about it. He just wanted to give a little lecture about what he knew about something. So is that ideation? Not really, except that he's phrasing what he knows in his own way. He's not quoting something, but it's extroverted intuition in the third slot, right? It's not ideationally original. Yeah, I'm not impressed with Joyce Mang either, although it appears she got that one lady right that I got wrong, so blind squirrels and all that, you know. I'm not 100% correct when I type people. Some people I get wrong, especially if I'm rusty, like I was with that lady. I should have figured she was ENFJ. I didn't type TE polar and SI polar enough. That can be a little bit tricky to distinguish, like SI polar from SI eighth. They're both pretty bad. Like they don't test well, you know. That doesn't mean they're bad. It just means they're not paying attention in that way. But see, I mean, that's really the difference between me and other typologists is I'm genuinely trying to get it right, and I can be convinced I'm wrong if you point out that I failed to test this well enough, or that those results look more like meow polar. I can be convinced, you know. Because I'm not telling people what type they are based on my intuition. If I'm having to use my intuition, then you're somebody who's proved difficult to test. You've got a weird polar, you know, that doesn't test well. Like SE polar, I don't have any tests for that really. So it's really hard for me to tell the difference between ENTPs, INFPs, and ENFPs, except ENFPs are easy to tell because they are TI polar. And INFP's TI8 is so much better than TI polar, it's weird. It doesn't seem like SI8 is that much better than SI polar, but like Acacia's TI is pretty slamming. You could see that when she played hearts with us for the first time. Ruben was struggling to keep up, but Acacia got it right away. And she'd never played it before. And it's definitely a TI thing to figure out how to play hearts, you know. Hearts is fun. Have you ever played Hearts? It's a good game. It's a trick game, you know, where you take tricks like bridge or spades. I like those kind of games. I've never really played bridge because it takes 4 people who know how to play bridge, for one thing. You have to have 2 partners. But it's an excellent game. I would love to play it if I had people to play it with. Maybe I could play it online. Anybody here ever played bridge? I've never seen a typologist successfully describe an interface DOM. Well, it's easy to describe interface DOMs if they are SI polar, namely ENFJs. They're easy to identify because they're SI polar. ESFJs are NI polar, and we actually have a very strong NI polar test. I just don't get a chance to use it very much because NI polar people rarely get typed. But if you give an NI polar person a long sentence with a lot of redundancies and ask them to distill it into a single short concept, they can't do it. They just can't do it. So that's a pretty reliable test. I just rarely have a chance to utilize it, you know. With TE DOMs, you're either going to have SI polar again and ENTJ, which is easy enough to spot. ENTJs are easy to type, but ESTJs, they're usually pretty easy to type too. NI polar again, you know. We will play it for sure. Show media. When we get home, it'll be waiting on our porch. People don't steal our packages where we live. Where we live, I've sometimes I've left the garage door open like all day, all night, accidentally. We've never had. I leave the car unlocked. You know, there's just no crime where we are. We're so far isolated back at the very end of Scott Road that there just isn't any crime back there. So our packages will still be sitting on our doorstep. I can guarantee it. The cats will be mad. Trouble will be mad when we get back. Like, where have you been? How dare you leave me alone like this? Connect 4 is kind of fun too. I kind of want to get some games. I'm glad you sent us that game, Show Media. I'm looking forward to playing it. Rachel and I could get a variety of games and play them. Why not? I think Acacia and Ruben are coming back pretty soon. Maybe after Christmas or something. That should be fun. I would encourage them to stay for a couple of weeks. So if they do that, then there's no doubt that we could all play it. You know, we could live stream some games too. A lot of how some people are configured is to write onto the external in a reflexive manner, which doesn't model well when looking at the attentional processes of the agent. You like online pool, like billiards? I didn't know they had that. But it doesn't sound like a terrible game to play. If I had my laptop with me, maybe I'd play a chess game or something with everybody. I gotta call a phone company when I get back to Mariposa as well, because I'm limited in what I can do live streaming wise. Like I can't really live stream games or anything like that because I don't have the bandwidth for it. I'm on DSL. But our house is connected with fiber optics, and they still haven't told me that they're ready to turn it on yet. I don't know why. That's SI polar, yeah. That's ENTJ's SI polar. Right. That you'll get that all the time from SI polar. If you ask them what they have for breakfast, They may or may not be able to remember what they had for breakfast, but they're almost always going to answer, well, usually I have this. And the reason for that is because SI polar is the same as assuming that you're always asking for information that is useful to some universal, right? So why would you even care what I had for breakfast this morning? You must be asking, you must want to know about how I eat, so I'll tell you what I have for breakfast in general. Who is the second best typist after you? Amy. I don't hate the question. Amy. That's my answer. She's an ESFP. So it just goes to show you. Oh, I'm Command 3. I'm very open to facts. But one fact that's probably true is that I have a lot more to teach you than you have to teach me. And it's not that I'm unwilling to learn. It's because I'm so willing to learn that I don't really have, and I'm 52 years old, you know? So, like, you know things, right? You know things holistically about the world. But those things don't withstand parsing scrutiny. And those things that you know are the sort of things that need to be parsed, not known. Some things have to be determined. Some things can be known. Some things can't be determined, have to be known. Some things have to be known from your experience, if you want to know correctly. Some things have to be known with your intuition, if you want to know correctly. So when Rachel looks to tarot to see if she's in a good relationship with me, she is not using the right knowledge function. She should be checking her own experience to see if being with me is a good experience, right? If she's happy, if I treat her well, etc. She shouldn't be looking to tarot to find out if we're compatible, or astrology or something like that. But she's an NI-DOM, so she uses her intuition and externalities to know things, even when it's appropriate to know with your experience. Similarly, things about public policy, society, the world. We do the world a disservice when we try to know with our intuition instead of determining with our logic. And if we try to determine with our subjective logic, namely FI, then we really do a disservice to the world. So because you're a knower, you're not going to be able to teach me very much about society and the world because you are not parsing or deciding, and that's not the appropriate area to know about. It's the appropriate area to decide about. But, you know, I'm certainly open to hearing whatever facts you have to say, and I listen, I read everything that everyone says, mostly, and give it its due consideration, you know? The problem is, most things that most people say are wrong. And it's like, I can't just let it slide and say, like, okay, well, that's fine, you just be wrong. Because that's just not my nature, you know? Well, I get that you're 54, but I've heard your thoughts about society and stuff, and like yesterday, I pointed out that Noam Chomsky's quote, in which he equates propaganda to violence in an authoritarian society, is completely misguided and wrong, disproved by the fact that he published that book, that you read it, and it's widely accepted as valuable to read. It falsifies the central claim, right? That democracy is driven by corporate propaganda. If that were the case, why do I hear so many people saying things like you said yesterday, which indicate a total lack of understanding of what a corporation is, and a desire to simplify things beyond any reasonable capacity to understand them, right? It's like each individual corporation is an individual corporation. This city of Pasadena is an incorporated city. A corporation is just a way to make it such, for example, that individuals, when their business fails, they don't lose their home. Do you want people who, when their business fails, for them to lose their home and all their savings as well? Corporations keep your business separate from your personal life. It's a critical legal system that we utilize to allow groups to have financial agency, etc. The fact that there are some big multinational corporations that you think are up to no good, okay, well, probably that's true. But there are entities of all sorts who are up to no good. Certainly, creating corporations as the boogeyman is not going to be helpful at all, especially when the hypocrisy implicit is so obvious. It's like the people. I went to this Bernie Sanders rally party one time, and ENFP was holding it. And he had cut out and laser printed out all these corporate logos on these wooden things that we were going to throw into the fire at a certain point. So I asked him, how did you cut all these things and make all these logos and stuff? He said, oh, I bought a laser wood cutter at Home Depot. And it didn't even blink. He didn't even think about the hypocrisy at all. He may even have had Home Depot engraved on one of those circles. Yes, I'm saying those general statements aren't useful or helpful when we're talking about public policy. Public policy requires a more adult level of conversation. You have to understand things, right? Like, a lot of people might say, we need to spend more money here at the municipal level providing housing for the homeless to solve the homeless problem. Maybe you might think that, Co-Manfrey. You might think we need to direct more resources to solving the homeless problem. But if you don't know about the Supreme Court case that determines exactly how homelessness is dealt with in the United States, then you're just talking out of your ass. You shouldn't have any opinion about it at all, right? Because if you're not aware of the Supreme Court case that says municipalities can't dislodge homeless people from public spaces unless they provide them somewhere to go, then you don't have any meaningful opinion about the subject, right? You're not informed enough to have an opinion, but you believe you have an opinion anyway. That's dangerous, right? People who are uninformed, don't know anything, and nevertheless insist on stating opinions about things, that's dangerous. Like when making your critiques of corporations, do you even know what a corporation is? But you don't speak with it, though, right? You don't embrace it. You reject it for more simplistic understandings that cause you to be on one team versus the other team, rather than remembering we're all Americans, you know? We are all Americans. Where there is propaganda, it's in partisanship. The partisans are propagandaing all the time. Noam Chomsky is a great example of propaganda. The first thing the propagandist does is declare other things propaganda, right? They try to devalue legitimate, nuanced narratives with their simple, it's like, since the population is mostly children, intellectually, they eat a lot of candy and they don't want green vegetables, you know? What I'm doing is green vegetable stuff. I'm being a statesman. I'm talking about actual public policy and how to actually deal with it, right? I'm not trying to collapse specific issues down underneath an umbrella position that informs me about everything. I'm dealing with each individual issue on its merits, as I should, as everyone should, because public policy matters too much for idiots to be fucking around with it. If you want to talk about what food you like, you want to talk about what movies you like, what music you think is best, I might disagree with you. I might still say you're wrong, but that's fair. That's totally fair, because then you're knowing the right kind of thing, right? You're knowing that which needs to be known rather than knowing that which needs to be determined. And of course, whether or not you're a knower or a decider is also determinant as to whether or not you're an actor or an interfacer. And need to know because they're not trying to act upon static systems, they're trying to engage dynamic systems. Dynamic systems you have to know things. You can't take time to decide, right? So the problem is public policy is not a dynamic system. It's a static system. It follows a set order of operations. There's an order of questions. There's a debate that gets done on the Congress floor, blah, 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 yada, 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 right? In other words, we're treating something that must be deliberated to be done well as though we can interface it. And if you're dealing with politicians as interfacers, you're going to get a bunch of glad-handers who are morons, right? Because you like them. You don't like Eric. Because Eric tells you you're wrong. As a statesman, though, my job is to somehow inform people of this in ways that don't threaten their identity. Because when somebody like Coneman, who's in his 50s like me, and has developed a whole bunch of paradigms that he believes in, etc., he's fairly set in his ways, you know? I mean, he's got good reason to believe that his understanding of the world works for him, and I'm sure it does. The problem is, the country is not him. I don't know the answer to everything. I know the answer to each specific thing that I know the answer to. So, like, for example, I have absolutely the only workable plan to solve homelessness. I have the answer to that. I've described it before. I've explained why it's the only workable plan and why we should do it, and how the Supreme Court essentially issued an unfunded mandate to municipalities that they need to then take over the responsibility for it. It needs to be a federal issue. Constitutionally, that presents potentially a problem, but nevertheless, given the Supreme Court ruling, they made it a federal matter. So, you know, do I have the answer to that? Yes. Am I prepared to question it? Well, sure. I'm prepared to have others question it. I've questioned it as much as I possibly can. If others want to present arguments that falsify what I'm saying, or that point out something I haven't paid attention to or noticed, great. I'll incorporate those ideas. But the thing is, the purpose of questioning things is to resolve the answer to them. You can't resolve answers to questions that are too big. You need to have your questions be specific so that your answers can answer those questions. And the answers are, of course, conditional, right? My answer is correct pending somebody successfully rebutting it. That's always going to be the case. But to pretend as though we can just continually ask questions, additionally, to pretend as though there are never any final answers to any question. Well, sure, you need an overview, of course. But the thing is, that's just what you call your frame, right? If you have a proper frame of reference, then it includes criteria so you can understand whether something validates or not. The overview is the framework. It tells you what value you're attempting to uphold and what criteria you say you need to meet to establish what you're trying to establish. And then somebody else has an opportunity to rebut what you're saying. Are you homeless, Show Me Dear? Maybe if you're homeless, you shouldn't have bought me that game. Well, yeah, we need to prioritize, sure. But the thing is, prioritize a question within the framework that the overview presents, and then we can do ideas. Anything else we're doing is avoiding that process in order to attain some sort of shortcut that's not adequate or not as good, 5:35. Well, I believe it was Einstein who said any given theory, hypothesis, explanation should be as simple as possible and no simpler. That's critically important. We want to distill things down such that they're comprehensible to people, right? But the challenge there lies in the fact that there are plenty of explanations that other people just can't understand because they either lack the educational background, talent, intelligence, or whatever. It's like what's his name? Feynman. Dr. Feynman, I forget what his first name is. What he said when reporters asked him to explain the math work he had done that won him a Nobel Prize, he said, if I could explain it to you, it wouldn't have won me the Nobel Prize. So, well, I think politics in the status quo continues to devolve because of partisan narrative wrangling. The United States body politic, in actuality, we all get along with each other just fine. There's no major conflicts. I don't hate you because you have different opinions than I do about politics or whatever. But the partisan aspect of it has been such that I think really the Republicans are the ones who started it, but now both sides do it entirely. They just demonize the left or the right as a means of providing candy to children, So then you get people like AOC in government, Trump in government, like extremely divisive people who, both of whom aren't qualified to do the job of governance. Well, I'm not asking them to question their views. I'm asking them to be a grown-up, to deal with the issue like a grown-up. And that means you don't have views, you have positions on specific things. If you're trying to use some kind of dogmatic ideology to inform you about everything in politics, whether it's corporations are evil, government's evil, those are the two basic lines of thinking, right? You got your social war, like progress, identity politics is evil, that's the right thinks, and then you got the left thinking that conservatives are evil, climate change deniers, etc. What's FPTP? I've never heard that before. Yeah, UK politics are different than US politics. I'm not that familiar with them, so I don't comment on that. But well, yeah. I mean, look, the thing to remember, though, Kunman, is a multi-party system is not going to provide any better solutions, really. There are a lot of problems with multi-party systems. Namely, you get a lot of single-issue parties, and that ends up undermining the the deliberative body that a legislature is supposed to be. You want a legislature to mostly stop things from happening, right? Like, you don't want many bills to pass. That's why there's a Senate. And that's why it has to be passed in the House, the Senate, and signed by the president, because in general, government does best when it does not get involved, except when there's a pressing need, right? So, for example, a good example of this is spam. When email spam first started happening, Congress wanted to take up the issue and pass a bunch of laws regarding spam and email. Of course, what happened instead? Technology solved the problem. We have spam filters, etc. And there was no need for a law, and fortunately it didn't get passed. So that's the sort of thing that, the hysteria of ideologues is going to always want to do big things. Unfortunately, government doesn't work well when it does big things. It works well when it does small, very pinpoint focused things. So like the Affordable Care Act, if it had just been a bill that passed an individual mandate, then it might have been a good idea. I mean, I don't believe in the individual mandate myself, but you could make the argument certainly that the ACA, Affordable Care Act, if it just required an individual mandate and accordingly required insurers to provide coverage, at least what you call liability health coverage, and that was the minimum you were required to get, right? So you have to get some health insurance that has a very high deductible, but it's catastrophic care coverage. So normally you pay for all your own medical concerns, but if you get something really bad happen to you, then you pay the deductible and it covers you the rest of the time. No, I don't have any Discord server. I don't like Discord. It lives up to its name. It's not a place of meaningful conversation. I am running out of electricity. So I think what I'm going to do is end this stream here in a second, and then, well, I'll end it when I get down to the parking lot. But I'm going to go to the car and plug in my phone and maybe drive to Denny's or something to get breakfast. I'll take you guys with me, but I'm going to have to end this stream in a little bit and then I'll restart it. I've got my parking ticket thing here. The problem with leaving the hotel is that every time I leave the hotel, plus my phone's dying, so I might as well just go to the car and go to Denny's or something. Someplace that has coffee. I maybe could walk someplace from here. That's possible. I still need to charge my phone though. So, car it is. If I have a problem at the hotel, then go ahead and solve it. Okay, I'll go solve my problem. I'll go to the car. I'll pay $20. And, then I will drive to some diner. Let me see, where do I want to eat breakfast? I could go all the way up to Sierra Madre, go to only place in town. We'll have because I know already from having attempted it that I cannot live stream in the parking lot. It's underground parking lot, and this has no bars. So, until later, adieu.